pretty rare opportunity you don't get very often. One of our customers has a extremely nice 1968 and a half true R code 428 Cobra Jet Mustang GT fastback. Look at this beauty right here. Introduced this steering wheel design. One thing that's kind of unique that Ford did, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but this is stamped steel to make it look like a leather grain. That's pretty cool. Door handles are kind of cool. They flip up and then they go down. Obviously, manual crank windows right here, baby. Boom, you gotta love that. And this is an adjustable mirror right here. These vents from the fastback, and they are functional, which is awesome. But this is one of my favorite parts about here. Ford created a crease in the center of the roof. Starts about the middle, the line through the center of the glass that follows down in the center of the trunk lid. That's almost like a 63 Corvette, right? It's just awesome. A couple things you have to look for when you're looking at one of these cars to see if it's actually a factory big block. It's in the VIN, of course, but here, these are called the shock towers. This piece of metal is a brace that came on big block only cars. It's on the edge of the door here. This is called a DSO tag, and it gives you some information. First of all, the VIN number. This digit, the letter R, tells you the motor, which is a 428 Cobra Jet. 63A means it's a fastback. Color is M, which I think is Wimbledon white in this year. 7B is the interior trim. The date it was built. DSO, number 46. That's very unusual in a 1968 because that actually came out in 1969 as Indianapolis. This is a late 68. Axle is H, which is a 350-to-1 posi. Transmission is number 5. Close ratio, 4-speed. And this car is super clean underneath. So the reason this came in was it had some oil leaks in the engine. The engine was getting a little tired, had some issues, needed to be refreshed. So the motor came out, got fully rebuilt, got dynoed, and we reinstalled it back into the car. And so we're just getting ready to give it back to the customer. If you're looking to buy a Mustang yourself, here's some things you need to look out for. Mustangs are very notorious for rust. And so they often rust in the subframe rails, which are kind of, you can see them from underneath. Basically these big rails, they run down about half the length of the car. And so this has super clean and solid subframe rails. There's still the factory spot welds are there. Factory spot welds are still there. Factory spot welds are here. This car is a really clean example. I'm looking to see if it's ever had floors replaced, and maybe it has, but whoever worked on this car did an excellent job. It's been fully rotisserie restored quite a few years ago, but that's why you'll notice some things have no paint on them, because that's kind of how Ford built it when it was new. As it went down the assembly line, that's sort of like a, they call it like a concours restoration. This is sort of a mix of multiple styles of restoration. So a true concours restoration would be, as the car went down the assembly line, they try to recreate where the paint would have been and where it wouldn't have been. One of the difficulties of any old car that sits because you don't like, once you spend all the time and money restoring it, you hate to drive it and get it dirty. The guy that owns this car now, he bought it like this, and he bought it to drive it. So you can tell as we go forward, there's a little bit of drip starting, and you can't hardly avoid it. Once you start using stuff, it'll get some grime on it. But this car then, as you come back, this is a 4-speed manual transmission. Now, if you look at, these are the floor pans. This car, like I said, is a combination of a concours restoration and just a super high quality rotisserie restoration. Concours would not be body color on the floor, but whoever did this completely painted the floors just as nice as the upper body, which is awesome. It's a 9-inch rear end, and Ford has one of the heavier duty rear differentials. Even to this day, people still use the 9-inch in all type of off-road desert racing. They reproduce axles for almost every make of car and still use the Ford 9-inch differential. So that's pretty sweet. And they're crazy strong. These things can handle like about whatever you can throw at it. These shocks are not Ford shocks, the KYB. They're called gas adjust. They have multi-valving inside, and they're really great. This is the fuel tank. It's kind of where it always was on the 60s Mustangs. And the fuel tank unbolts and lifts out of the trunk. So it goes from the top down. Here's your fuel sending unit where the gauge goes, which is right here. That's why people like old cars, my friend, because to do this on a modern car, you'll spend just whatever, $1,000 at a shop changing any of this stuff. But on a Mustang, you can do it in about 10 minutes. If you look here, this was part of the GT package, the quad tip exhaust. So anytime you drive an old car, first thing I'll notice is the sound. It sounds like a muscle car. The whole car is rumbling and shaking. The shifter just is shaking and vibrating. This is that Hurst shifter. This car does not have tilt steering. This car does not have power steering. If you want to hit the horn, it's got a horn lever. How cool is that? But you better remember, this car, because it's a GT, has a factory tachometer that even works. Most people, when they restore these cars, especially if they put aftermarket ignition systems, the tach doesn't work. That's a real thing of detail that works. The speedometer, if you notice, goes up to 120, and let me tell you what, easily does that. Look at this now. This is your windshield wiper. You click it this way. I'm not going to turn them on, but you click it this way to turn it on and then off. This is a clock, which is kind of a big deal. And again, notice the clock actually works. Here's your gas, and then your temperatures over here. The blinker, the old blinker there is right and left, which is kind of cool. The other thing that's really special, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but when you turn the headlights on and you turn the brights on, the horse illuminates. How cool is that? And you have to know how to drive an old car to know to turn the brights on, you use your left foot. It's on the floor. Because it's a GT, that's very special, is it has driving lights. So that's this switch down here. You pull that on and off. Now, 1968, this was before retractable shoulder harnesses. So it's an extra harness that then you can hook into. It has two seat belts. How funny is that? So this is your shoulder harness belt, and then your actual regular belt is down here. And when you're not using the shoulder harness, you just fold it up and stick it in this little deal. And oh, there's a piece of Velcro here that Velcro's on itself. That's not cumbersome. This car does not have air conditioning. So you can crank. This is back when you have to use your arm to open the window. You have a vent window as well. And fastback only. Look at this. You have vents right there. And very rare, the option like at a swap meet. If you look back here, this seat is worth like probably a couple thousand at a swap meet because it's called a flip fold. So the seat will fold completely flat. this does have a console, which was an option. These are aftermarket for cup holders. But included in the console is this really cool, where you can hide your stuff. This is an aftermarket radio, but in the factory location. Of course, you got your glove box. Make sure that shuts. Oh yeah, that was great. She's sticky. I'm gonna have to lubricate. I wish I wouldn't have done that. Come on, baby. There we go. Fixed. It's fixed. Look at this dash now. It's a little drooping because of the sun. But notice how it has these twin humps, I guess. In 2005, when they redesigned the Mustang, they did a dash just like this. Even the gauges, how they went round in 2005. And even in the most modern Mustang, the gauge dash layout is very similar to this car. So this is classic Mustang. Because we just did the engine for this customer, it is customary to take it on a short test drive. That's what we're doing now. Then we'll put it back on the hoist just to double check. Brakes are nice, it doesn't pull. We're getting some oil temp right now, which is nice. We want to keep the RPMs pretty low until we get oil temperature, because in these old cars the oil is pretty thick and you never want to starve the bearings. Now these cars from factory were made to be a factory drag race car, basically. These were the hot car. They only came out mid-year 1968, and if you do some research, it was in cooperation with Carroll Shelby, even though they weren't a Shelby car per se. But they used the 428 Police Interceptor engine, and they put 427 heads on them, and it really gave the car some incredible power and a really durable engine, transmission, and rear differential, so they could handle the abuse that the street race. Now, because this is a GT, it has a larger front sway bar. It's got the disc brakes in the front. It's got the rear sway bar. The guy who restored this car, he wanted to set it up, because he really liked the Shelby Mustang, he wanted to set it up so it could do road racing. So it has the aftermarket heavy-duty shock absorbers. It has bigger anti-sway bars. Like, I just love looking over the hood. So iconic, the way that the fenders, if you look out here, the way that the fenders crease, so you can see the edge of the fenders. This is a factory hood scoop for the Cobra jet. It just looks like a muscle car, man. This car looks like it's going 100 miles an hour just standing still. Okay, this is a pretty cool curve. Because this car is set up to handle pretty good, the pedals are also set up for what they call heel-toe shifting. So usually when you get up to the curve, you know, I'm kind of going slow anyways, but you can push the brake with your toe and kick the gas with the side of your foot, downshift so you match your revs. Get to the apex of the corner, you start to lay on some throttle. Same, slow down, downshift, and then get her, there we go. Yeah, these cars were pretty cool. You know, this car is a valuable car. It's almost becoming like crazy valuable. So we would never want to do anything could end us in the ditch, kissing a tree. We do not want any of that. I'm only revving it to like 4,500 RPM. Redline's closer to 6,000. So, but this motor has so much torque, you really don't need to wring it out that hard. And it's so enjoyable to drive. The transmission, you can really shift it. You got to really steer it. It gives you this feeling that no modern car can give you. And so consequently, you don't need to go so fast that you're going to end up in jail. I mean, I'm having all kinds of fun at like 40 miles an hour. And you know, with such low gear ratios, by the time you're going 65, you feel like, you feel, I guess I'm at 2,500 RPM at 65. You don't really want to go much faster. The motor's kind of singing. Thing just going down the road straight as an arrow. It's a really nice car. It rides really nice. It's a lot of fun. We have our windows closed, but we have the vent window open. It's not overly windy. It's not too hot today, but it's just a really pleasant car to drive. It's great for some back roads, great for some cruising. Look at that. We still have some fuel left.